right, well, welcome back to part two of the Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow of Farm to Table. We are here with Coral Fodor Strong and Luke Gerling to talk about Farm to Table. And for those of you who tried to join us for the first of our two shows today, apologies, we were on the wrong page, but we're back.
Because we're just so popular. We have so many Facebook pages, it's hard to keep track of them. And we have at least one follower on every page. Anyways, we started off the first show talking a little bit about the yesterday of Farm to Table, Alice Waters, Chez Panisse. We talked about the process, what we consider Farm to Table today, basically dirt, vegetables, hand-picked, and then either delivered or picked up by the restaurant, and it goes, straight into the kitchen and onto the table. So very, very few steps to get your food from the farm into your mouth. With that said, and we kind of came to a consensus that Alice Waters in 1972, when she opened Chez Panisse, was more or less the trendsetter, the mother of the modern farm-to-table movement. Great.
In America.
So it may surprise some to know that as Alice Waters recounts it, this is a quote from her, and I believe she was addressing organic farmers, obviously. She says, "I was never looking for organic farmers. I was never thinking about big picture sustainability. When I opened up Chez Panisse, I was only thinking about taste. And in doing that, I ended up at the doorstep of many of you being organic farmers." So let's start with Coral. You have to cook the food. Do you agree with that approach?
1,000%. 1,000%. I just have the shivers right now. That makes me so happy. There's such a difference. One of the things that I love most when I'm speaking to my customers and they're eating my food, they will say things like, "I don't like broccoli. Your broccoli's amazing. I hate tomatoes. What did you do to these tomatoes?" And generally my answer is, touch of salt. That's the way it came out of the ground. It came out of the ground yesterday. It came out of the ground 4 hours ago. That type of thing. The taste is so important. And that's why with restaurants, chefs that aren't using organic or aren't using close proximity farms, you can taste the difference. When I go out to eat and I go to a restaurant and I taste, arugula is my biggest pet peeve because everyone uses arugula. Every restaurant uses arugula in San Diego, and you taste it. It tastes like plastic garbage.
Slightly peppery plastic garbage.
Generally, most restaurants that use arugula here use a sweeter baby arugula because they don't want it to taste the way it's supposed to taste. It's been modified.
Right.
But you can taste the difference so much. Tomatoes, to me, generally are disgusting unless they're coming from a local farm. The difference in taste is it's unreal. It's unreal. It also will generally go bad in 3 to 5 days because it hasn't been sprayed. It's not.
Well, that raises a question for both of you. We know that if you take cattle and you put it on a truck or a train up to the slaughterhouse, that cattle gets stressed on the way there, and the product ends up less good. Do vegetables get stressed on a truck ride, to the market?
Well, I think just in general, like on my side, it's just a nutritional devalue after a while. But you got to really break it down to where the big, huge. Let's just take carrots, right? Most big farms are
Carrots are getting picked on today. Literally.
But you can really tell the difference when you're getting a mass-produced carrot, whether it's an organic carrot or not carrot. There's these varieties that are shippers and pretty much keepers in the. So they can be picked. They can be put on a truck. They can put on another truck, go to a warehouse, be shipped again, get to your local health food store or whatever.
It's not the same product.
And then you're still putting those carrots into the produce department, into the cooler, and then they're going on the shelf, and then you're getting that carrot. So they need to have a variety that has nice big tops because it's a visual thing in this whole food dilemma that we're going with, and it's more like shippers, and it's a whole different variety. So I think again to like what you're saying, the tomatoes and the carrots and everything, is that you're getting more varieties locally because we're less worried about shipping them or saving them for long. We want to harvest them at premium sugars, at premium like ripenesses, whatever it would be, and we want them to be handed off because our name is behind that, and we want to give you the best product because it just helps everybody.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That just brings up a really good point about you're saying with the flavor and the taste, which is one of the reasons I do what I do, is that another thing that's awesome is, yesterday you were at my restaurant and you saw a farmer deliver.
Right.
So she's probably one of maybe 2 farmers that touched that produce and vegetables.
Yeah.
And then there's me and my sous chef. And those were 4 people have touched your food.
I touched one of them.
You dirty
Ooh, I
boy.
hope you threw that one out.
Yeah. It's probably already rotting.
You know the old saying, you never know where that's been.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Anyhow,
But let's talk about the backhanded commentary that that statement makes on today's food and table, farm to table movement. How much of today's farm to table movement is the exact opposite of that? It's farm to table for the sake of being farm to table, as opposed to the freshness and the flavor of the food and all of the things that really, according to Alice Waters, drove her that direction.
Well, I mean, all I can really say about any of that is just, I mean,
Well, let me ask
stuff
you
that's
this.
cut right out of the ground.
Is
it
it
is
possible
just
to take a
ridiculous.
perfectly good, beautiful, the most flavorful organic carrot you've ever had and screw it up in a kitchen?
Yeah. Over processing it. I think
Right.
the best stuff is minimally touched, and I think if done right, it can be presented just as itself.
But not
I've heard a
necessarily.
lot of- I've heard a
not
lot of,
necessarily. Coral does a great job with farm to table and very natural cooking, and
Totally.
yet there's some gastronomical value to what she's putting out.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
seasonings. There's things that she did. What was the doggone mole burrito?
enmoladas.
Right?
Yeah.
Where if she hadn't told a whole bunch of people that it was a vegetarian enchilada, you kind of go, or vegan enchilada. It was a pretty daggone good enchilada,
Totally.
and a lot of the stuff that was in there was not recognizable in its original form because
Correct.
it was cooked down.
But I don't think
Yeah.
that's inconsistent with the get good stuff and don't screw it up. I mean, I think that that's perfectly consistent with it. You can do different things with it, but you have to celebrate what it is. And I think that that's one of the things that Coral fundamentally does. She finds different ways to celebrate those beautiful vegetables.
Tonight's menu, I have a beet bolognese, which is just, I did the same thing for my dinners on Sunday, and it was so successful I'm doing it again. But I break down a large portion of those beets and turn them actually into a sauce, as well as I cook another part of them I break down into a ground beef. And so what I'm doing a couple things. I'm over manipulating the vegetable, if you want to say that, sure. Some of it's in its more natural form. Some of it is more broken down. But what's happening too is, guess what? Newsflash, I'm making you eat your vegetables because I'm putting it in something called a bolognese. So you think you're going to like it because you know what a bolognese is. But really what I'm doing as a chef is I'm trying to get you to eat your damn vegetables. And when you tell me
You're
how
just
good
trying to win points with Danielle.
But
over there.
let's really be honest
Why?
about it, though.
She's a vegan.
Oh.
The only people you're really making.
Oh, you're vegan, Danielle. Oh.
I thought everybody knew that.
I don't
Wait,
know.
hey Danielle, are you vegan?
I'm in a bubble. I'm in a bubble. I'm in a little tiny bubble.
The only people you're really making eat their vegetables in a practical sense are the people that can afford to eat in your restaurant, though, right?
True.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Who really should care about farm to table?
Anyone and everyone that cares about what they're putting in their body.
Okay, but
What if they can't afford it?
But in a practical sense, what if they
I
can't
disagree
afford
with people that say they can't afford to eat at my restaurant. You know what? Don't drive a fancy car or buy an expensive purse. You can afford anything you want to. Period.
Lots of people
It's
can't.
just a matter of how I disagree with that.
Lots of people don't have a fancy car. They don't
Lots
have
of
a
people
house.
working multiple jobs. Lots of people sitting in traffic an hour and a half each direction to get to their one job. Lots of people picking up their kids
I
from
understand
school.
that, but you're not eating at my restaurant every single day. But you can afford, at the end of the day, basic organic vegetables from a local
Okay,
farm
well,
in
let's
San
say
Diego.
they can afford to eat
Period.
at your restaurant twice a month.
Okay.
What do they do for the other 72 meals a month?
Learn how to cook. Go talk to your farmers.
Okay.
learn how to cook.
Well,
That's how
you're
I did.
assuming that they don't have 16 hours of their day every day taken up with other stuff that's equally, if not more important, like working, cashing their checks, taking care of their kids, those types of things.
It's tough,
right?
I know. I don't want to cook. A lot of times when I get home from working with vegetables, I don't want to touch a vegetable.
Michael and I just had lunch a week ago at a place that is off the rails in terms of popularity. It just kind of, popped up. Where the heck did this place come from? Every chef in town, including farm to table, including, people that won't cook with anything, including salt and pepper, are going, this is the best place in the world. And I'm sure that all their stuff came from a farm at some point, but basically they're doing dirty flat top burgers and pizza.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Okay.
We're going to go there later.
So then what we're saying is, so we're saying then they
really
don't have to eat healthy all the time.
Absolutely not.
No, I think it's a false push. Sometimes you can do your best.
Moderation.
I will eat a Ben and Jerry's pint faster than all you guys, and it's probably not the best thing for me. But
Game on.
Game on. We should have like 10 pints right here. We'll go on a ice cream contest. I'm down for the next podcast. But I think it kind of goes when I was up at school at UC Santa Cruz, I did some of these kid programs with teenagers and even the elementary kids, and I was asking them when we were going through these training programs, why aren't we pushing the organics with these kids? And they were like, well, they're still eating out of cans and boxes. So what we're trying to do is and they were talking about the kids in Watsonville and a lower income.
At least get them to eat fresh, right?
Where it's
the first step.
Farms everywhere,
Sure.
but they don't eat the farm
right.
stuff, which is very ironic, right? I think that was a big dilemma that I'm still going with in Oceanside. And it's just eat some vegetables.
Yes.
And let's just do it one day a week. I did a junior high career day thing, and I told the kids every time, I was like, look, I'm an organic farmer. That's because I really push organics. I really support the organics. But if you eat McDonald's every day of the week, and I asked it, how many of you go drive through for dinner for the week, like Monday through Sunday? And a majority of them rose their hand. I was like, can you just do me a favor? Can you get your parents just to go to the store, even if it's not organic, and buy a head of lettuce and make a salad, just a salad, one day. I'm not saying 7 days, but just one of the days. And so I guess the concept here is I want to push everybody off of the mountain and let them tumble down in the Organicville. But I think I got to start with a really small snowballs here and there. And I think we'll be more powerful that way. And we're so obsessed with what we do that I think sometimes we forget that everybody else is kind of on a different path, and there's fewer of us.
Is it really sustainable,
in this army?
though, when you're talking about a world with 7.2 billion people and the population's growing every day, right?
Yeah.
And look, no doubt the people in this room know what you're talking about, but is it really sustainable in the sense that, let's say that people actually care, and I like to think that people do care, what little time they have to devote to a topic like farm to table. Because people in real life, a very, very small percentage of us have time to devote any kind of thought to that topic other than going, well, if it says farm to table on the menu, I'd rather go there than a place that doesn't say farm to table on the menu. But let's say that everybody in the world right now decided, I'm only going to eat local produce from local farms at places that cook it naturally and
there'd be a lot more organic farms.
How many people would
A lot
starve?
faster.
How many people would starve to death? That's my question.
I think we would be losing people in the beginning of that process for sure.
But it's about transforming people's mind and educating them to slowly do a movement where we're pushing out the big farms and we're putting in more of the small organic mom and pop farms.
Yes.
It's a long, it can't be done overnight, but it can be done slowly if our customers start demanding better product, and better product is coming from
So are all
farms.
the people that work for these big farms, are they all bad guys?
Absolutely
No.
not.
No, God, no.
Absolutely not.
No.
But
Absolutely
let's start. Let's put a number on it.
They're just
What
they have
perc-
different visions. Sorry.
Yeah.
What percentage of people in San Diego County care about farm to table, care about organic produce?
Not enough.
Not enough.
But let's give me a number. 1%, 20%?
I almost don't even want to comment because I think the number is so low. I think a large percentage, I'd say 25 to 50% think they care about farm to table, but those that are actually executing that is very small.
It's going to be that's
Well,
you're
for the
spot
record, I
on.
agree. I think 25 to 50% think they care. But here's
Of the people
here's
in the-
what
of
I
the people in the
here's what
county?
I think the difference is
Think they
between
care, or think
Coral's
there's-
definition and mine. What I think is they think they care and they really truly think they care, but they just don't have the wherewithal or the time or
The education.
the education to
Or
know
they're
the
being
difference.
misled.
Right?
We are
It's kind
definitely
of like
running around.
we hear about obesity in
crazy.
schools and blah blah blah. And look, I care about obesity, and yet I am. Right?
Come on.
I mean,
We're not going there.
you know, there's a lot of issues that people are trying to care about and that they think that they care about without necessarily having the time because they do devote so much time to the other things that they have to get up in the morning and worry
Honestly,
about. Right?
I think that if you said that, if you answered a slightly different question the same way, how many people in San Diego County care about politics? I'd agree with your number. That many people, 25 to 30%, think they do, but really don't. I think that.
But see, in your mind, you're saying that. You're saying they think they do. In their minds, they do. They don't think they do. They do.
Well, I'll tell you, whoever's out there listening right now, if you support your local farms, you'll go buy direct from them,
Yep.
or you'll go to a restaurant that buys
Direct from them.
direct from the farms. Because what happens, and I'll give it a really quick breakdown of this, is that if you're at the restaurant and you see that people are coming in and they're asking for certain dishes and they're ordering certain dishes that are farm supported because it says, let's just say, Cyclops Farm strawberries on it, that chef is going to take note because they're constantly out or their numbers are,
They
they're
see it in the
sweet,
books.
and then
They
they're
see it in the
going to
books.
order more,
Well, see,
and they're going to
the thing-
order more. So then I have to
The thing
deliver
is, when
more.
you go in the grocery stores, and I'm just using this because it's a true example, right? And from a business standpoint, you go in grocery stores, you go in the produce section. There's a fair amount in any grocery store these days that's dedicated to hand-picked, organic.
Almost everyone have an organic
Okay,
section now.
and they would not have that section if there were not interest in it. And so then it becomes very difficult to tell that mom that only really has time to shop for 2 hours on a weekend that, hey, you should really try to go to the farmer's market so you can get something local
But
and
it's a
then
great
make
start.
another second
It's a-
trip
It's
It's
a
a
to
great
the grocery
start.
store to get
It's
the
a
rest
great
of your
start,
stuff.
You can
though.
get organic stuff at Walmart now. You can get
Exactly.
it. You can get it at probably Lucky's, Ralph. Where are those places? Still
Which I
open?
think is to the
From
point that a
Chile.
lot of people care. A lot of people really do care, and yet they also care about a lot of other things as well. So the
Yeah.
percentage of caring may be
I guess it's- I
small
guess
in
it's
our world, but it's
definitional.
large in their world.
I think it's definitional. At some level, do they care 1%? Sure, they do. How much do they care? Ultimately, I think the point that you're making, Luke, is you vote with your feet. At the end of the day, you care about that which you put into action. I mean, in theory, you care a little bit, even if you don't put it into action. But if you care, you do something about it. And if you don't do something about it, you don't care.
And I think that there has been a little bit of a trend, and let's get to that. I mean, how much do you think? What do people really want when they come to a restaurant? With the understanding, the restaurant's part of the hospitality industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people come into your restaurant, they're basically coming in. I've sat there many times, sitting in your outdoor living room with you and you and Spencer sitting in the kitchen, just making some good home cooked stuff and coming out and rubbing people's shoulders and just chilling out, right?
I didn't get a shoulder rub.
And so, well, I know, but she doesn't like you.
You got something different, Michael.
Whoa, that's right. She had to
I
throw it
paid for
away.
lunch. I
you
paid
never
for
know.
lunch. What are you guys talking
never know
about?
where that's going to go.
Jeez.
But now that's one atmosphere, and that's just such a great atmosphere to sit and eat your farm to table food in, as opposed to another type of atmosphere which has been perpetuated, where you basically walk in a restaurant, you're kind of being
You're a
screamed
number.
at.
You're
Well,
a
no,
number.
you're not a number. You're being screamed at that if you don't know where this has been, and if you're, this is literally everything that we put in, and you feel like you're being not educated but talked down to in terms of farm to table. That would tend to put somebody that's maybe on the fence or maybe thinks that they care or really wants to care and go, I don't care that much. I really just want to take my family out for a nice meal. And if it happens to be a little healthier and supports local farms and whatever more, great, but not if it's going to be shoved down my throat.
At the end of
How
the day,
much of that is there?
At the end of the day, people go out to eat great food.
Yep.
Period.
Yes.
And
in a nice atmosphere.
Of course.
Made by really cool people.
But I think ultimately it's people they want good food. They want to be fed. They don't want to cook at home. They want to go out. They want to have a good meal. I think that's first. Anything above and beyond that is nice service, beautiful atmosphere. Oh, the food's great too. Oh, the food's local. Oh, the food's organic. I think that's all a bonus. And I say that dishearteningly because that's what I have found is that at the end of the day, as long as my food tastes good, not everyone actually cares where it's coming from, which is why
Well, they probably do just by virtue of the fact that they landed in your restaurant,
True.
but it wasn't the foremost consideration. If you had the healthiest food, if you were growing it literally in the back of your kitchen and it tasted like crap, they ain't coming.
Right.
Right? So it's not the
Or
foremost
they're not
consideration.
going the second time.
I think that maybe the experience also that you've created, or the experience that sometimes like what I see at Davin's place up at the bar there is that it's just that adds. I don't know how it does, but it seems like it adds flavor to the dish. I don't know how it does, but it's almost like their own personal salt and pepper, and you can taste it in the dish and in the food. When I go to Davin's, I'm like, holy crap, man!
we talked about that yesterday.
It's just the ambiance or the passion and love behind it,
Comes
and
through.
that's pretty much. With my dirty hands and stuff, that's what I want when I give you one of my strawberries.
And arguably, I think I've sat at David's Sushi Bar maybe more than most people in the county from the
put together
from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I
seen
can
a lot of
tell you,
pictures
and
of
I've
there.
seen a lot of people ask, "Man, why is this so good?" And he tells them. And yet, you know what? You almost never see him volunteer. He never says as he's putting it in front of you. By the way, this fish was caught a mile off the coast and brought in by a local fisherman.
He absolutely has. I've experienced that. But I think what we're getting at here is that yes, we're in the hospitality industry. We're also in the entertainment industry, and in some ways, a wonderful meal at Garden Kitchen or at Wrench and Rodent or at a number of other really wonderful places is more like a cinematic experience. You're coming in there for a little bit of magic, a suspension of disbelief, a hell of a lot like a good movie. And if it doesn't have that, that doesn't mean it's not a good meal, and doesn't mean you can't have a very good time. But if you do have that, you know what? Farm to table, as Ferran Adria said, it's necessary but not sufficient. There has to be something more. There has to be that little bit of magic.
Yeah. Well, I think what you've created, Coral, I got to get there, by the way. I mean, cutting as many of the middle people out as possible. I think. I think that, and I'm just going to throw it out there, is like our dinners that we have on the farm. We've done dinners, happy hours, and we just did a brunch with Daniel at LTH, and I think you could have made almost mediocre food, which nobody has ever done, and
when I do when I cook
Yeah, when
for
you
it,
get
it'll
Michael,
be
Michael
average.
throw off. But the being on the farm, and we've been able to like kind of not reinvent the wheel. Just we're copying everyone else from Northern California and stuff. But you come on the farm and you can be a part of it, and you can see it exactly where I harvested those greens an hour before the dinner. It's like I said, you could have just cooked something really mediocre and it would have tasted awesome because it was right there. And
full circle experience.
Yeah, it's incredible how it changes.
And
things.
speaking of full circle, let's go back to Alice Waters and Chez Panisse. They were popular not because they were organic. Look, that movement grew. They were popular because the experience, because the food was so good, because people just, it was just a cool place to go and eat. I think that's why your place is so popular, and some of the farm to table places around town that are doing so well, and maybe not doing well in the becoming billionaires doing well, but have a following, are happy what they're doing, have farmers that are happy that they're getting their product out there. And when it comes to farm to table, Michael, you nailed it. I mean, it's about the food, it's about the experience, it's about the hospitality, it's the inventiveness, it's the whimsical nature of it. It's not the militancy.
Look, let's be honest. If there's any restaurant in the entire country that has truly made its name on farm to table, it would be Chez Panisse. But Chez Panisse isn't here in 2018, having started in 1972, because it is, because of the farm to table ethos. It is because it's a great restaurant. It puts out great food. If you've ever had dinner in that dining room, it is a magical place. It is an experience. It is all of that, and it would not be what it is if Alice Waters did not have those relationships with those farms. It would not be the same thing, but it's here because of everything that it does every day for many, many, many decades.
Well, I think it's just I really think, just to play off that, is that we're going back in time to where I feel like the European markets and stuff is like you'd go get your bread and your eggs and your milk and your veggies for that day, and you'd cook that way, and there wasn't really like, you didn't really keep your stuff. It was for that day, and then the next day you did that, and the next day you did that, and I think the rad people are still doing that. I think just our food system has gotten way out of whack, into now we just can get on the phone, and even though like there's awesome people that support
the basic
that.
reason we don't do that anymore as a society is because we invented refrigeration.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the question that I asked earlier. I think it was in the first segment, and that is, does what happens when it leaves a farm and it gets on a refrigerated truck degrade the vegetable? And I think that most people think they have to refrigerate their tomatoes. You know what you do when you refrigerate a tomato?
You just
Ruin it.
Yeah. What do you do when you refrigerate an onion? You get rid of all the sweetness. And so part of it is we've lost the taste memory of what it's like as a society to get fresh vegetables every single day.
A lot of us are not being taught that. I shouldn't say us, because I was, but a lot of people are not.
Because your parents were hippies.
My parents were hippies, and
And Coral's not, though.
No.
A lot of people are not being taught how to properly care for those vegetables either. They think that, tomatoes come out of a can, and they think green beans come out of a can, peas come out of frozen bags. They're not taught where they actually come from.
Well, just for the record, my green beans came out of frozen bags, too. We didn't eat out of a can. So.
I grew up on canned green beans. I'll never eat those again.
Yeah, my mom thought that frozen had far more nutritional value than canned, so we got a lot of frozen vegetables.
But canned tomatoes, much of the
not
year,
bad.
No, I don't actually
are
have
the
anything
superior
against
product.
it.
If
I
you're
don't
going to
have
get
anything-
San Marzano tomatoes, for
Yes.
instance, from Italy, you're going to get them in a can, right?
And I'm okay with that. Bad example, but there are a lot of examples that are just not good in a can and not good frozen.
There's just nothing to compare.
I think
though,
there are very few.
on a fresh tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Absolutely
Oh, God.
not.
When you buy even all the overripe ones that I don't even sell to anybody, and I take home and I just make a quick sauce that night, and for a pasta, it's like the best thing I've ever had in my life. I feel like a cook, like I should have my own restaurant.
We just used to grab tomatoes off
Crazy.
the vine from my dad's garden and eat them. And of course, I always had a salt shaker in my hand because that's what I did. But the first time I did that with
born that way.
first time I did that, no, really, first time I did that with the store-bought tomato, not thinking
On the first anniversary of this podcast, I think I'm going to get you a golden salt shaker.
Let's do the produce of the week.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yes, so what is our produce of the week, Luke?
It looks like purple Brussels sprouts on the mini side. They look pretty good.
And they are.
What do you think, Sheen? He doesn't need to cook those things.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like,
good.
You don't need to.
Well, I'll start
Candy
off. I'll
apples.
tell you what I would do with these. These are sweet, not a hint of bitterness to them, almost arugula-like in their pepperiness. I would shred these up and put them in a coleslaw. I think it would just be
watch
They
your
do
knuckles.
great. Yeah.
I don't have a single farm, to my knowledge, that I have worked with in 3 years that has provided me with Brussels sprouts. With the exception of the first year, I believe I got Brussels sprouts from Susie's. But no one else that I'm working with is growing Brussels sprouts.
God, we'll have to find out where these came from,
Yeah.
because they're really good.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. My husband has some in the backyard, but other than that,
So what would you do with those?
I don't know. My favorite, actually, it sounds silly, but I just bake it with olive oil, salt, pepper, foil, about 35 minutes till they're perfectly tender, and that's it. Just good and baked. I mean, if you want to get creative, sure, something like what Sheen said with a coleslaw. But I always like to put something on your plate the way it came out of the ground
Yep.
with just the mild manipulation.
I'm making a note. Coral says coleslaw is creative.
I'm
putting
I
that
don't
on my
think
note.
she said that.
Your Brussels sprout coleslaw is creative.
Well,
I'm giving you a pat on
I
the
know.
back.
I'm saying that's as a note for when
I've
I do my
never heard
coleslaw
the Brussels
recipe.
sprout.
I think it's great.
Oh, yeah,
coleslaw.
it's good.
Wow.
It's good.
I
It's a brassica. It's a,
People put cabbage in. Why wouldn't you put this? A lot more flavor.
yeah,
You know.
just a lot of labor. It looks like
It's
a little
great.
sketchier labor.
So look what you can do.
I just get a iron skillet, nice and toasty, and
A little bacon fat.
yeah, I'd probably go that way, and I would. Maybe my wife wouldn't be that stoked, but I would throw some of that bacon on there, and I'd throw it in there in the oven and get it nice and toasty for not that long. So it's a tiny bit of crunch and just a tiny bit of fresh. I don't really like the soggy veggies.
Oh God, no.
Just a little bit of give, and that's it, man.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
I mean, we're here at Specialty Produce, and Kat Humphus is here, and
I
so
didn't want to bring it up.
cannot have to mention the idea of frying them, but I'm going to do them with the same dish that I talked about with the arugula flowers. I'm going to pop them in the oven. Just give them a very light roast. Again, just so you can take it just past the raw, and these don't have to go very far past the raw. And put them on the same plate with that steak and with that chimichurri and the arugula.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
Okay, we'll be over later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come on over. All right, well, that brings us to the end of another episode of The Art of Spooning. We'll see you back in 2 weeks. So we ask the tasty question, a dish or a concept? And we ask it to Nino Nines Camillo and Juan Carlos Recamier about poke and ceviche. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.